Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, friends, readers, listeners, and viewers from wherever you may be and wherever you're tuning in to us from. We appreciate your patronage and the fellowship, and consider all of you family, more than just friends. And I feel really close to a lot of you, though I've never met you personally, but we've shared intimate dialogue, and so that has befriended us in a good way. And so I do appreciate all of you out there, and for sharing our shows with others, and for spreading the word, and for trying to stand up for the Lord in your own way, and for sharing in whatever way you can a little bit of light to help spur people in their own awakening to remembrance of who they are, what this is all about, and why we're here. And so welcome again. And I was just on with John, and we were talking with C.K. Waterman about his new book, which is focused on the fallen angels, an explanation of who the Benai Al Elohim, the sons of God, are. And in talking about this, we're going to cover tonight a cryptic text called the Kebra Nagast, which is an Ethiopic text. It's also one of their national treasures. The book is called The Glory of Kings. That's what Kebra Nagast means, The Glory of Kings. And it's basically a very lengthy text that gives a detailed account of how Christianity was brought into the Ethiopic realms and into that kingdom, and how, another temple and another, they brought up a whole nother branch, Sheba, Queen Sheba, and so these holy texts will give us further insight into the fall of the Watchers, especially this particular chapter that we're going to cover tonight, which is chapter 100 of the Kebra Nagast. And to spell the Kebra Nagast, it's capital K, E-B-R-A, separate word, capital N-A-G-A-S-T, Kebra Nagast. And I have as a co-host with me this evening Roman White, who does his own program over there at Truth Radio, and it's called The Seeds of Evil, and he expounds on the Matrix and waking people up to it and introducing you to profound truth so that you can help decipher the illusion that's parading as a reality that has so many people caught up, and they have no idea as to even how to unplug, or that, it's necessary to do so in order to escape this realm, and to understand why it is that we're here, why it is that Christ even had to come into the flesh, why it is that Noah was spared and the flood was brought upon the world, and what the Lord means when he says, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the second coming of the Son of Man. Because these cryptic words are very profound, and they're very introspective, and they're deeply tied to us as being the fig tree generation. And so we're going to discuss those things, but before we continue, Roman, you want to give a shout out to the listening audience?
Well, sure. Glad to be here tonight. I always enjoy doing a program with you, Zen.
Yeah, we've been blessed to come, again to similar discernment, and you've also been one of those confirming witnesses for my life, as so many people now have. I remember years ago when I first started my broadcasting career, even before so, when I created the Fallen Angels TV network as a community for, truth seekers, seekers of lost paradise, and like-minded individuals that wanted to know more about what Genesis 6 was talking about, and what the war in heaven was about, and what predestination is about, and what, reincarnation and incarnation, and all these different things, the fallen angels, and all the different books. And so tonight we're going to go into this book, and it's going to be, for those that have not heard about it, it's going to be a very eye-opening experience, to say the least. And this will also explain how it was that the Watchers, as fallen angels, because this is a different rebellion, and that's something else that people have to understand, that the fallen Watchers that fell during the time of Yared, after the creation of Adam and Eve, that these angels were holy angels that were serving the Lord and serving the Word, that they were not part of the rebellion, the war in heaven, that occurred during the separation of light and darkness on the second day. And that's when Lucifer and the rebel angels, the one-third, the seraphim angels, these dragon-like angels, that's when they were banished out of the heavens. These angels were transformed into flesh, into bodies of men. They challenged the Lord to place them into the flesh. And so we're going to go into that story. And, Roman, I'm going to get you to comment on this as well, because this is really important text, I believe, for people to know about and to be able to entertain for themselves. And so let me pull it up here. All right. This is chapter 100 of the Kebra Nagast. It's concerning the angels who rebelled. And as I said, this is not the first angels. This is not the rebel angels that were banished on the second day. This is those angels that are mentioned in Genesis 6, chapter 1 through 4. The Nephilim, the Nephal, those who fell, that when they took on and married the daughters of man and chose as wives all that they lusted after, that they brought giants into the world. And this chapter will explain how it was that they were able to fornicate with the daughters of man, and also how it was that hybrid beings ended up being a result of this fornication. And it says this: "And there were certain angels with whom God was wroth. Now he, the knower of the heart, knew them, and they reviled Adam, saying, Since God hath shown love to him, he hath set us to minister unto him, and the beasts and the creeping things, and the fish of the sea, and the birds of the air, and all the fruits and the trees of the field, and the heavens and the earth also. And he hath appointed the heavens to give him rain, and the earth to give him fruits. And the sun and the moon also hath he given him, the sun to give him light by day, and the moon to give him light by night, season. He upon him the Spirit of life, and he saith unto him, My son, my firstborn, my beloved. And he hath set him in a garden to eat and enjoy himself without sickness or suffering, and without toil or labor. But he hath commanded him not to eat from one tree. And being given all these things by God, Adam hath transgressed and eaten of that tree. And he hath become hated and rejected, and God hath driven him out of the garden. And from that time Adam hath abandoned his hope, for he hath transgressed the commandment of his Creator. And God answered the angels, who reviled Adam in this wise, and he said unto them, Why do ye revile Adam in this wise? For he is flesh and blood, and ashes and dust. And the angels answered and saith unto him, May we declare before thee the sin of Adam? And God said unto them, Declare ye his sin, and I will hearken unto you. And I myself will answer you in respect of Adam my servant. For God had worked on behalf of Adam, and God said, I created him out of the dust, and I will not cast away that which I have fashioned. I brought him forth out of non-existence, and I will not make my handiwork a laughingstock for his enemy. And those angels said, Praise be unto thee, O Lord, for thou, the knower of hearts, knowest that we have reviled Adam, because he hath transgressed thy commandment, that he was not to eat of one tree after thou madest him Lord over everything which thou hast created, and hadst set him over every work of thy hands. And if thou hadst not told him, and hadst not commanded him not to eat of one tree, there would have been no offense for his part. And if he had eaten because of a lack of food, there would have been no offense on his part. But thy word made him to know, thou didst say, as surely as thou eatest of this tree, thou shalt die. And he, after hearing this, made bold and ate. Thou didst not let him lack sweet fruits to eat from the garden, and thou didst not let him lack one to comfort him, and a companion like unto himself. And these things we say and make known unto thee, and we have revealed unto thee how he hath transgressed thy commandment. And the merciful one, and the lover of mercy, answered them on behalf of Adam, and saith unto them, You have I created out of fire and air with the one intent, that ye should praise me. Him have I created of twice as many elements as you, of dust and water and of wind and fire, and he became a being of flesh and blood. And in him are 10 thoughts, intentions, 5 good, 5 bad. If his art inciteth him to good, he walketh with good intent. And if the devil seduceth him, he walketh with him on the evil path. As for you, ye have no other object in your minds but the praise of me, with the exception of that arrogant one who produced evil, and became an evil being, and was driven forth from your assembly. And now, why do ye magnify yourselves over Adam? If ye were as he is, and I had created you of water and dust, ye would have been flesh and blood, and ye would have transgressed my commandment more than he hath done, and denied my word. And the angel saith unto him, Praise be unto thee, O Lord. Far be it from us. We will not transgress thy commandment, and we will not oppose thy word, for we are spiritual beings for life, and he is a creature of dust and doomed to folly. And now, try us well, put us to the test, so that thou mayest know whether we are able to keep thy word. And when they had vaunted themselves in this manner, God, the lover of men, saith unto them, If now ye go astray, so far as this in transgressing my word, the wrong will be upon your own heads. For Gehenna, hell and fire, and sulfur and fervent heat and whirlwind shall be your habitation until the great day. Ye shall be kept in chains, which can neither be loosened nor broken forever. But if you keep truly my word, and if you do my commandment, ye shall sit upon my right hand and upon my left. For everyone who hath conquered is mighty, and he who is conquered shall be overpowered. Now, Satan, we're getting to the end. It's not very much more. Now, Satan hath no power whatsoever, for he hath only what he maketh to germinate in the mind, and he cannot grasp firmly. He cannot perform anything, and he cannot beat. He cannot drag, and he cannot seize, and he cannot fight. He can only make thoughts to germinate silently in the mind. And him who is caught by the evil mind, he prepareth for destruction. And if a man hath conquered the evil mind, he will find grace and hath reward, which is everlasting. And to you according to what ye wish, there shall be upon you the mind of a man and the body of a man. But take good heed to yourselves that ye transgress not my word, and break not my commandment. And defile not ye yourselves with eating, drinking, fornication, or with other things whatsoever. Transgress ye not my word. And straightway they were given unto them with his word flesh and blood, and a heart of the children of men. And they were content to leave the height of heaven. They came down to earth, to the folly of the dancing of the children of Cain, with all their work of the artisan which they had made in the folly of their fornication, and to their singings which they accompanied with the tambourine and the flutes and the pipes, and much shouting and loud cries of joy and noisy songs. And their daughters were there, and they enjoyed the orgies without shame, for they scented themselves for the men who pleased them, and they lost the balance in their minds. The men did not restrain themselves for a moment, but took to wife from among those whom they had chosen, and committed sin with them. For God hath no resting place in the hearts of the arrogant and those who revile, but he abideth in the hearts of the humble and those who are sincere. And he spake in the gospel, saying, Woe be unto those who make themselves righteous and despise their neighbors. And he saith again, God loveth the humble, and he holdeth lightly those who magnify themselves. And straightway God was wroth with them, and he bound them in the terror of Sheol unto the day of redemption. As the apostle said, he treated his angels with severity. He spared them not, but made them to dwell in a state of judgment. And they were fettered until the great day. The word of God conquered. Who had fashioned Adam in his likeness or form, and those who had reviled and made a laughing stock of Adam were conquered. And the daughters of likeness of form, and those who had reviled, and the daughters of Cain, with whom the angels had companied, conceived. This is interesting. Pay real close attention here. This is really introspective. And the daughters of Cain, with whom the angels had companied, conceived. But they were unable to bring forth their children, and they died. And of the children who were in their wombs, some died and some came forth, having split open the bellies of their mothers. They came forth by their navels. And when they were grown up and reached man's estate, they became giants, whose height reached unto the clouds. And for their sakes and the sakes of sinners, the wrath of God became quiet. And he said, My spirit shall only rest on them for 120 years, and I will destroy them with the waters of the flood, them and all the sinners who have not believed the word of God. And to those who believed the word of their fathers and did his will, no injury would come from them from the waters of the flood. But he would deliver them, saying, Thou believest my word, thou canst save thyself from the flood. And Noah said, O Lord, I believe thy word. Make me to know by what means I can be saved. And God said unto him, Thou canst be saved from the water by wood. And Noah said, How, O Lord? And God said unto him, Make thyself a four-sided ark, and build it with the work of the carpenter, and make for it 3 stories inside, and go into it with all thy house. And Noah believed the word of God, and made the ark, and was saved. Now hearken ye unto me, and I will explain to you concerning this thing. I believe this is the last paragraph. When God gave the command, he had given unto Noah a wing like the eagle, and transported him to the country of the living with all his house, until his anger with the sinners who had not believed the word of God and the word of their fathers had been abated. Or could he have lifted him up into the air? He could have commanded the water of the flood, which is like a wall, not to approach the one mountain, where he would make Noah to dwell with his sons, and not to submerge beasts and cattle, which he wanted. But know ye this, God was well pleased that by means of wood which has been sanctified, the salvation of his creation should take place. That is to say, the ark and the wood of the cross. God said unto Noah, Make that whereby thou shalt be saved. That is, showed that the sign of the cross was fourfold. Now the 4 corners of the ark are the horns of the altar, and he commanded Moses to make the ark out of indestructible wood. He said, I will sanctify thee by the heavenly. It says Moses here, but that should be Noah. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to go ahead and get you to comment on this, Roman, and then we're going to pick up some of these subtle points.
Okay, now, these were the same angels that came down in Genesis 6, and the same angels that are spoken about in the book of Enoch.
Right. Yeah, the 200 that came down and made mutual imprecations, that taught humanity how to war.
In the book of Enoch, when I read that, it seems as though these angels came down and decided that they wanted to go down and mate with womankind. And
right.
Here it seems as though they are making fun of Adam, and so God, to show them, changes them into human form.
Right. Right. And these were some
Seems like it's a different.
Right. Notice also that this is after the war in heaven and after the rebellion of Satan and the seraphim angels who had already been banished. And they're in, with the Lord after he had created Adam. And then, they're making fun of Adam. They're reviling Adam. And they are among the sons of God. They are part of the Holy Watchers. But because they do make a laughingstock of Adam and challenge the Lord to put them in the flesh, he then does so. And he transformed them into flesh and gave them the bodies of flesh, even a human heart. They were able to mate with the daughters of man. That's why the giants were born unto them.
Now, I'm going to flip back because I'm more familiar with the Enoch than I am this text.
Yes,
Enoch said that in Enoch it said that these watchers, that they made a vow and a curse. And the way I read that, one of them essentially was saying, hey, I'll be blamed for all of this. And they made a mutual pact that all of them would be guilty of the same thing, if I'm reading Enoch correctly.
Right, exactly. And that's when they all bound themselves to do the same thing, to commit the same act. And what's interesting also about some of the other ancient texts is that the Sumerian texts attribute these watchers as being what are called the Igigi, and that these Igigi, these watchers, they were stationed on the planet Mars. which I thought that also gave a interesting kind of twist to it as well. But another thing that is interesting to me about this particular story is the description of how the children were born and how they split open the bellies of their mothers and came up through their navels, how they were born unnaturally. Now,
I've
we
read
know
something along that line before in another text, but this is a new one on me. This is a new one on me that they actually were changed into flesh bodies by God because they were making fun of Adam. I haven't heard that one. I'm trying to reconcile that with what the Book of Enoch says regarding, whenever they came down on Mount was Hermon.
Right, on Mount Hermon. Here's another thing that is really interesting, and I'm going to be covering this also in a show really soon. And I just the Lord has kind of just led me down this rabbit hole as well, and I'm going to be talking soon about the war between the Olympian gods and the elder gods, the Titans, and explain who these characters are so that people can put together this story. Because what had happened... Go ahead.
I always thought that the Titans were where it says that they were giants in those days, the same became mighty men of renown. I thought that that's who the Titans were.
Well, no, actually, the Titans... the way that it plays out in the elder stories, they attribute that to being the elder gods, and like Kronos and Saturn, and that the younger gods came to be born of them. And the younger gods were there were two branches, the Enlilites and the Enkiites. And here's a story that is also tied to this particular war amongst these particular hybrid giants, because they did war amongst themselves as well. It talks about a particular, the Nordic-looking, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed giants, and how there were also this red-haired, green-eyed faction of giants, and how these two particular giants warred amongst themselves. But the hybrid children, the giants, they were born of these elder gods, that the fallen angels that had come first. They went to war. The giants went to war against the fallen angels. These
giants, they were the hybrids, correct?
Right. Actually, they were the ones that came up through the navel of the women. Yeah.
But they would be half human and half deity.
Right. Right. Half human and half deity.
Now,
and
are
also,
they the ones that became the Titans?
Yes, they were the ones that were the men of renown. They were the ones that that were warring against the Olympians, the gods of Olympus, the other gods. We'll talk about that.
You're saying that the hybrids actually warred with the Watchers, their fathers?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. They did. They went to war with their fathers.
Interesting.
Yeah, and what's also interesting is that what people don't know is that there's two lines of these particular giants, and that these particular giants, not all of them were necessarily bad as well, that they had individual traits and individual characteristics, and that they also made free will determination to live out their lives in different ways. Because it talks, in the Emerald Tablets, it talks about the war between the sons of Belial, who I equate with being tied to the line of Enki and being these red-haired, green-eyed giants that were, they were cannibals, they were bloodlust. And, and I'm not saying the blue-eyed, blonde-haired Nordic giants weren't also similar, because they were all wiped out. But
Well, now the blue-eyed, blonde-headed ones would have been the ones that Hitler believed were the ancient Aryans. Is that correct?
Right. Yes. And also, we have stories of, like giants, like Hercules. Hercules also was one of these hybrid beings. He was a son of one of the fallen angels, but he actually did good things, some good deeds to protect humanity. And then, we have the story of, like, in Odysseus, where you have these cyclops with the one eye that were cannibals that actually ate humans and drank the blood of humanity. So all these stories are based on the very real scenario that giants did walk the earth in days before the flood and after, as the Bible says. Roman, can you read that passage? Do you have it before you?
No, I don't. I told you I was. I've had this computer on, and I've had so much up on the tow bar, I was afraid it would mess up the sky.
Yeah. You go ahead and make comment on what I said. Go ahead and comment on what I said, and then I'll pull it up.
I want to ask you something that is in the King James Bible. Do you recall when, would be Joseph went down into Egypt and took over and became the ruler?
Yeah.
And then he brought his brothers down there and his entire family.
Right.
And when he was introducing his father, Jacob Israel, to the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh heard or saw, how old he was, and he made a comment on it, what great age he was, which I take to mean that the Egyptians themselves didn't live that long. And Jacob Israel made a comment to him, something to the effect, if you think that I lived for a long time, you should have seen the lineage that I came out of, how long they lived. You recall that?
I'll have to look again closely at that, but that's
I'm wondering why it is that these people apparently lived so long that the Pharaoh was so taken back with how long that they lived.
Right. This is something also, and I haven't brought this out a whole lot, but in my studies, our patriarchs, from Adam down to Noah, it's my opinion that those particular individuals were much larger in stature than what we are. That even, I'm not talking about Adam as being giant, but bigger than what we are as far as modern humanity, in that they lived 1,000-year lifespan, and that they had long longevity, and it's my opinion that not only were their lifespans longer, but their statures were of much greater stature as well. What's your opinion on that?
Well, that's interesting in that, you know who Ellen G. White is?
No, I don't.
Well, Ellen G. White had written a bunch of books, and she lived back in the 1800s, and is one of the patriarchs, you might say, of the Seventh-day Adventist. And she taught that Adam and the ancient ancestors were of a higher stature than we are today. Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting to me.
Based on what I have read of her writings, she seemed to be of the opinion that they were about 12 foot tall.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how much larger, but I do believe that they did have different body type, different structure in some way that allowed them to live 1,000 years, and that it was after the flood that not only was humanity reduced to, through after Noah and his children, the humanity's lifeline went down to 120 years pretty quick. But even the giants, it talks about in the book of Enoch, how even the giants, because they used to live long, enduring lifetimes as well, they had their lifetime and their stature reduced, and their lifespans would be 500 years. And it doesn't make mention of how long they were before then, but the Lord reduced the stature of the hybrid giants and their lifespan to 500 years after the flood as well. So, and we know there were giants after the flood because we have the stories of Og and the line of Goliath and his brothers and the wars between David and that line. So,
it's interesting too. They say that there was a canopy of water over the earth that protected the world that was before the flood from a lot of the radiation that we get from the sun, and that there was actually, the atmosphere was such that it was a much denser atmosphere, and that reptiles continue to grow throughout their lives. The longer they live, the larger that they grow. But they also say that it would be impossible without this atmosphere 3 or 4 times what our atmosphere is today for these dinosaurs to live, that their bodies couldn't take in enough oxygen unless that oxygen was compressed somewhat. In other words, it was kind of like they were breathing compressed air as opposed to the air that we breathe today. And they couldn't survive at the size that they were outside of the earth as it existed prior to the flood, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I've read similar stories that talk about that time, about there being this particular water canopy that did protect the earth from radiation, and that it was during this particular time also that it speaks about in the Bible as there being no rain. It was a time before there was rain. And that it was also, people speculate, and scientists also speculate, that it was the rupture of that water canopy as well as the floods,
breaking
the waters
up
of the
fountains of the deep.
Exactly. That both were utilized in flooding the earth to such a degree that, it topped the mountains. So.
Right. Here where I'm at, I'm about probably 75 miles from Glen Rose. And over at Glen Rose, they have what they call the Creation Evidence Museum. And they've got some interesting things over there in that there's a dinosaur footprint with a man's footprint there inside of it. In other words, the dinosaur's footprint and the man's footprint, and they're both fossilized. But one of the things that they have that kind of goes along with this, they have a hammer with petrified wood in it, and the hammer is similar to a very small sledgehammer with a hole through it, and the iron that was cast in, they say that it will not rust, and that you could cast iron that way today, but you would have to increase the atmospheric pressure by about 7 spheres in order to produce that same thing. But if you cast iron with 7 more atmospheres pressure, that iron likewise would not rust today, which I thought was interesting.
That is really interesting. What is interesting to me also is in my research about the prior times in the ancient past, and I'm going to go more about this in some further shows and some future shows. I'm going to actually bring up the texts that make mention of this. But in the stories that I've read about the ancient mythologies and the different oral traditions around the world, you also have stories about the destruction of what we know and term Atlantis, but what many people call the motherland, or what is known as Mu, M-U. And that these particular stories give account of not only one destruction and one shaking of the earth violently, and also plummeting of comet-sized asteroids, and much destruction caused that way during this time, that there were 3 cataclysms that actually rocked and shaked the empire of Mu from its inception, and that this was the time before the creation of modern humanity, and this is the time when the fallen angels ruled over the cultures and the civilizations of that first created Genesis being, which we know as to be what is termed in the Sumerian text as the primitive worker, and that they had during that time also instituted caste system and kingship and established their own children, which at this time they had those elongated skulls. They were those conehead type people, and that they were also giants. That they were ruling over these particular people and these particular beings, and that it was during the time of Atlantis that they utilized these people and these beings and these creatures as slave labor to produce the various megalithic type structures and various things that they did. The creation of the Abzu, different mines, underground structures. There was also, it spoke about the first destruction as being something that had happened 50,000 years ago, and that was the first judgment against Atlantis. And it was because, again, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, they talk about the sons of the law, which I guess there were some giants that were dedicated to following the word and following the law for some time. And then the sons of Belial. And the sons of Belial were the ones that opened the stargates and brought in the beings that caused the total and utter destruction of not only Atlantis, but that whole archipelago island, 10-island empire, of whom, for those that don't know, go ahead, Roman.
Would this be a time between possibly Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yes. Those are the prior times that I'm talking about. What the Egyptians called Zep Tepe, or what is known as the first times. These are what Hesiod terms the Golden Age, the time when the gods ruled, or the gods with little g. We're talking about the fallen angels here, the B'nai Elohim, yeah. Not Yahweh Elohim, we're talking about Elohim, little g, little gods, Elohim, fallen angels. Yes, that's what we're talking about here. And Atlantis and all the judgments that took place against Atlantis were done before even the creation of modern day humanity. And so
that's interesting. I always figured that Atlantis was simply the world as it was before Noah's flood. But you're saying that Atlantis was a time and a place with some type of on it between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. Because in Genesis 1:2, the world's in chaos.
Right, exactly. And that the judgments that took place against Atlantis are also part of the Jeremiah 4, chapter 23, those judgments that give us a description of a time when the cities were destroyed, the cities of the fallen angels were destroyed, and this is a time before the creation of man. And so, yeah.
But do you believe that what inhabited between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2, do you believe that these were angelic beings that were on the earth, or were there humanoid beings that were on the earth at that time too, and that entire civilization was destroyed, or were there both humanoid and fallen angels that inhabited the earth, or maybe they weren't even fallen at that time?
That's right. They weren't even necessarily fallen. The rebel angels that were cast out, they were fallen. But yeah, we had some that were working on behalf of the Lord, and that's why you have what is termed the war between the sons of the law and the sons of Belial. And I'll be talking about that more in later and future shows. But yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about, and that's exactly what Jeremiah is describing in chapter 4 there. And so it's important to understand all of this in order to get a grasp on how time unfolded. And you have to give account to the fallen angels and their interdiction and their and we're talking about the rebel angels here, not the watchers that fell after the creation of humanity. We're talking about the rebel angels here. And when they mated with their own particular hybrid being, the primitive worker, they also brought in hybrids during that time, but these are hybrids without a living spirit, not like the soul that Adam had. They did not have the Christ consciousness that we are indwelt with, that they are so jealous of, that gives us a connecting link to the Father and the Son. And so we're going to talk about all these things a little bit later as well. Roman, we've got about 9 minutes remaining, brother. I want to go ahead and give you a chance to tell people where they can go to check your shows out and the different shows and topics that you cover. Go ahead and give a plug for your where people can go to find your work.
We broadcast on truthradio.com, and we're on every Sunday night from 8 o'clock until 9:30. Now that's Central Time. Truthradio.com. The show is called Seeds of Evil, and basically what we have done, and we kind of a little bit flip-flop back and forth, but we've pretty well over the course of a year and a half traced the lineage of Cain being Satan's son right on up through the ruling elite, which would be the banking cartels that seemingly run the earth pretty well the way that they want it today. And that's kind of what that show is built around.
Well, I think it's interesting because, that was also one of the big secrets that the Lord had revealed to me so many years ago, was the whole Cain line and the enmity between the bloodlines. And we had mentioned earlier on John's show, and for those that don't know, I was on with John the Baptist earlier. Please go check out that show. We were on with C.K. Waterman, and we were talking about how it was that, the fallen angels came to be here, and the difference between the rebel angels and the fallen angels. And so all these things are important for people to ponder and give consideration. But the whole thing with Cain, that's also one of the big secrets. And when you can understand that, it will be like a skeleton key to unlock so many secrets that are hidden and contained within the Word, like Matthew chapter 13. And so, Roman, I appreciate you, brother, always being willing to join us and to share your insight. I think it's
I had C.J. Quartermain on my show, and he's got somewhat of an interesting theory. He theorizes that these fallen angels, being spirit beings, when they come down, they're kind of like energy, but it coalesces and as it were, into a solid mass, and they use up so much of this energy that they can't get back where they came from, which
Absolutely.
I thought was interesting.
Yeah, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth also give confirmation of that. And the work that Edgar Casey does on the Atlantis and all of his work also talks about that. So, yes, they were interdimensional beings, and, yes, they did occupy fit extensions, and that they were producing fit extensions by manipulating the DNA and creating genetic experiments with not only the creatures, the human-like creatures that were here, and such that we have now the Cro-Magnon and the Neanderthal man, and we have these hybrid human-type beings that were they're not human Homo sapien. They are not modern man like we are. The Lord created us and gave us the breath of life and interjected us into paradise and protected us and our ancestors. But we are in the flesh now, and there's a whole reason for that as well. We'll talk about that, the sons of God and who we are, the wars in heaven, and what this is all about, because it goes back further than what happened in the garden with Adam and Eve and the seduction of Lucifer and her impregnation with Cain, the first hybrid child. It goes back further than that. The original sin is tied to the war in heaven, and we also have part and place to play in that. Roman, do you want to comment on that real quick, and then we'll end this with song?
Well, this is my theory, that whenever the three groupings of angels, one led by Lucifer, one led by Michael, and one led by Gabriel, when they had that war, you'll recall that Michael and his band fought against Lucifer and prevailed. Well, that means that Gabriel and his band set the fence. In other words, they said, "Gee, we'll watch this war, and we'll pick the side that wins." So they didn't do anything in the war. And it's my theory that after that they had a trial, and Satan, having been defeated, he was condemned, and he challenged God. Essentially said, you make all these rules and everything, you're nothing but a tyrant. And if you were down here on my level, you couldn't keep all these laws that you say we have to keep either. And it's my kind of theory or opinion that the angelic hosts were sent down here on this earth and put into a body, a flesh body, and they're going through, and depending on their choices, they'll either go back where they came from originally when they had conditional immortality to unconditional immortality, or that they will be destroyed together with Satan when his sentence is finally carried out. And that's why he's called the son of perdition, because his fate has already been decided. He's already been tried, sentenced, but sentence hasn't been carried out yet. He hasn't been killed.
Yeah, I think you've got a really good grasp on this as well, brother. And it's just, as the word says, out of the mouths of two witnesses shall the truth be established. Till Saturday, God bless all. Thank you, Roman. Take care. Love everybody out there. Take care, brother. God bless.
Bye.
Bye.